My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and you're watching Diaspora Network Television. August 6th would be 58 years of Jamaican independence, and Dr. John Lennon is here to talk to us. First of all, what I get when you mention John Lennon, one person comes to mind. Do you hear that all the time?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, I was named after the great man.
Oh, so your parents actually named you after him?
No, actually, I was the first black child born in a town called Dudley, and when the nurse saw Lennon, she just put John in front of it, and my mom, being a Christian, just left it.
Oh wow! So your name, your mother's last name is Lennon, and so the woman took it upon herself to put John in front of it, and your mother agreed with it.
Yeah, she just left it as a bit of a celebrity. People were coming to see me as a first black child born in the hospital.
Oh wow, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Well, before we lead off, it just came on the news that a high court, the Supreme Court in Jamaica has ruled against dreadlocks being on kids' heads in schools. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's fine.
But if there's anything that Jamaica is known internationally for, it's dreadlocks. So why would they ban it from the schools?
It's the old colonial and slave master law, isn't it, that we still have in Jamaica at the moment, unfortunately. If you're on the island, even get into government buildings, you have dress restrictions. Some of them don't even want you to wear shorts to go in. Yeah. I mean, this is Jamaica. I mean, it's 100 degrees every day, and yet they want you to be wrapped up in like woolen clothes to enter a government building. Yeah, it's ludicrous.
Wow. So why did somebody sue against that for it to? They didn't pass a law. So somebody must have launched a lawsuit, and it went all the way up to Supreme Court before it, right?
Yeah, so back in 2018, 5, and the school then said that they will not accept her for whatever reason with the hair. And so the parents then put forward the complaint. They took it to the court, and then the court then said, well, you'll get an injunction, and that she can still attend the school. And so she's been attending the school while it's been going through the courts. And then a couple of days ago, you heard now that the Supreme Court has said that the school hasn't violated her or hasn't violated any kind of regulation or laws against her. That her civil liberties are still haven't been restricted in any way. People of Jamaica are very upset about it, and rightly so. This is the antiquated law that we still have in the country.
What is the public's reaction to that?
Oh, anger. We say Rastafarianism is actually a religion. So how can you discriminate against the religion?
Oh, okay. And so the Supreme Court ruled against, I guess, school standards parameters, right? But if that is so, why didn't they just come up with standards? I can understand why the Supreme Court wouldn't want long dreads up to the knee in the schools, but they could have set standards, the hair, the length, and all that stuff. Why do you think they didn't do that?
I think they're going to go through the process now because the Prime Minister has stepped in and to be any kind of discrimination anybody blocks. So there will be some kind of check.
Okay, very good.
And the court actually said
well,
that
we've all seen Jamaica. Go ahead, please.
No, I said that the court said that this should never have happened anyway. A case like this should never have come up in court. This should have been resolved elsewhere. It shouldn't. It shouldn't be.
So,
Yeah, it should never have come before.
so what do you think is going to happen? Do you think locks are going to be restored in the schools?
Yeah, I think, especially with we've got the Black Lives Matter issues going on as well. And this is another a black issue. So I think that the Prime Minister has put his 2 pennies worth in saying that there should not be any condemnation against our children. So I think that that will be rectified. All right.
Okay, thank you. No problem. We've all seen Jamaica through the lenses of Bob Marley, Jimmy Cliff, Usain Bolt, and other notables. But tell us about Jamaica that the rest of us don't know.
What you don't know. Well, I think I mentioned it to you before when I spoke that I think there's something really wrong in the world, that Jamaica looks like a paradise, and yet we have people wanting they actually aspire to leave Jamaica and go to the UK. I mean, the island that's grey, cold, and they want to leave beautiful Jamaica to go there. So we know straight away that there's a big problem in Jamaica. You know, Bob Marley, the great Bob Marley, he sang all about injustice, oppression of the people, and that still exists even today. I mean, if you look at the living conditions of some people, of the poor, that there hasn't been much change in the 58 years that ago. People still living in little shacks, just this one room, running water, no electricity, and it's 2020. We still have those issues in Jamaica today. And if you go into the rural areas, particularly, so if you're a rural farmer, that's where you can see there's not much change that's taken place. Because if you're a farmer, then you'll know that invariably living in a rural area, you're going to go as a farmer. So what do you need as a farmer? You're going to need roads you need to get your produce to the market. It must have a road. If you go into rural areas, everyone's not fit for purpose. We have on the news last week where people were ferrying their goods by a donkey. A donkey is 2020. That's how bad the roads are. Then,
wow.
Yeah, and then if you're saying that the farmer then has to get his produce to market, then with the market, you should see them on our markets. They're beyond dire. When it rains, there's no bathrooms there. When it rains, you're just out in the elements. The market will flood. It's just disgraceful. I mean,
some will say though that in every country, even some of the richest country, some of the conditions that you are describing exist in those countries, and that the government may not be able to solve all the problem. At the end of the day, the people need to be resourceful to fix those kinds of problems. What do you say to those who say that?
Oh no, I totally disagree, because the people pay their tax dollars, and the government is supposed to use that money correctly. Now, what our government does is spend what they think that they want. So at the moment, they have a parliament building a house, and they've decided to leave that comfort and want to go to luxury, and they're going to spend 55 million that we don't have to build just one building for themselves. Now, how are we going to pay for it? What's the return on investment on a brand new parliament building? There isn't any.
Okay. So what kind of Jamaica would you? So what would you like to see happen in Jamaica after 58 years?
58 years. Proper governance would be a wonderful thing. Proper governance, then everything will fall into place, won't it? You have education, you won't have the corruption, you'll have equality. But we don't have good governance here. We have a two-party system, and there's no real difference between either party. All that happens is that one party, and then they can get their hands on the public as they feel fit.
So, I mean, if you say corruption, right? There are different levels of corruption. And right off the bat, I can say in every country there is corruption on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being absolutely deplorable and 1 being, say, there's a little bit of corruption there. Where would you put Jamaica on that scale of 1 to 10?
11.
That bad?
Yeah, it's
Well, give us
an example. Okay, then an example. Right. At time of independence, 58 years ago, 2 things were needed, in my opinion. What you need your country to prosper, you must have quality education. I think everybody agrees with that. But in Jamaica, we don't have again, not fit us. The second thing that we need also would have been cheap or competitive price electricity. We're an island and we don't have mineral resources. We don't have fossil fuel. So everything that we have to get nearly everything. You can't import everything. So certainly in industries that you must have in Jamaica, for instance, clothing, how their khaki uniforms, the standard khaki uniforms, nearly all of them, 400,000 of them. Now you would expect that those uniforms would be made in Jamaica. They're not. Mm-hmm. They're made in India and China. Now how can it be a case that somehow that in a country like China can produce these goods cheaper than it could be made in Jamaica, which is supposed to be a poor country? Surely we should be able to manufacture certain things in this country. We can't import everything. And with our electricity prices, no option but to have a large amount. So we have 2 things that the government could do, haven't done. So we have quality education, and our education is very, very poor. And our electricity rate actually highest in the world.
Your electricity rates is the highest in the world?
They're in the top.
Okay, but let me ask you this: when you say all these problems that Jamaica is facing, certainly there are some silver lining. There are some good things, because it can't be all bad. What are some of the good things that you think Jamaica has been able to achieve in 58 years?
There are no good things. It's a failure.
No good things?
No, I'd give the government a failure rate. I mean,
really?
If you could prosper, you must have good education. And as everybody knows, the education is linked directly to poverty. Have bad education, you're going to perpetuate poverty. And we have a cycle of poverty. We have people who live on, we have 700,000 people in this country apparently that live on squatted land. They don't have any capital.
What would you change if you became president or the prime minister of Jamaica? What would be your priority areas?
Again, education would be the first thing I'd look at. But what I would do is invest heavily in renewable energy, because that way we could actually bring down the cost of electricity. Now that can be easily done by state investment, and I've actually also students, as I said, I mentioned a level of corruption here. I sent in proposals and they've just been ignored. And they're very proposals because they're just based on prudence. So the taxpayer would not pay an extra penny. It's all to do with uh, the Jamaican people not paying the privately owned electricity company for keeping all our public infrastructure on the grid. Now, so our schools, street lights, hospitals, police stations, all of those buildings should be off the grid. Now, and that was in the region of 150 million US a month.
So
Not a month, a
who?
year.
Okay, in 58 years, I'm sure not all the leaders have been bad leaders. Who are some of the leaders that you wish you can have now? The previous ones.
Dr. Michael Manley. Michael Manley was in power when I arrived here back in 1978, and the education then wasn't bad. In fact, it was good. But since then, from what I can see around me, education has actually deteriorated. I think we've had an increase in poverty. Certainly, we've had an increase in crime. I mean, we are number two, I think I read, number two when it comes to homicides.
Mhm. Wow. Okay, so Jamaica is also known for reggae music, which is an international commodity, right? And also, like you said, fast running athletes. So you're doing certain things right. Maybe as a country, they can focus on how to leverage those things that you're good at for the betterment of the country. What do you say?
I said, I'm the best thing we can do over here, I said, for the betterment of the country is renewables. I said it's a very easy thing to do, and that will actually improve education. So if you're flying over, right, what do you know about Jamaica? You know it's sunny, don't you? Everybody knows that Jamaica gets and yeah,
Is everybody knows Jamaica is what?
Jamaica has an awful lot of sunshine. Everybody knows that.
Yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. We have sunshine, and we also have organic waste. So we have three things we use to generate
Mhm.
electricity. But yet we're actually tied to dependent on fossil fuels. Now the government could easily decide, okay, then we'll move away from fossil fuels. But what they've done, instead of moving away from oil to renewables, they've moved from oil to liquefied natural. That makes sense whatsoever because of the cost. It always costs us a lot of money to import the natural gas and fossil fuels. That is the biggest problem that we have in Jamaica. If we
Okay.
depended, many of our problems would disappear. Now we have sunshine, wind, and waste. They'll say, but when you're flying over the island and you're looking out the window of the area, you won't see any solar panels, and you don't see any wind turbines. Now, I would automatically, years ago, I automatically thought the reason for that was that it just cost too much money. The period was just too great. It will take 25, 30 years for you to pay back for that initial investment. And that's why I thought, and I think many people think, that's why we don't have any renewables here. It's far from the truth. The payback in 10 years, not 8 years, is actually under 4 years. 4
To
years.
pay back.
So if you, yeah, and I'll say it again, the house. So if you were living in a house and it costs $400,000, paying rent to the landlord is the equivalent of you paying to the landlord $100,000 a year. Nobody
Okay.
can do that. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Yeah.
Automatically, yeah, you'd automatically go and get a mortgage, wouldn't you? You'd get a mortgage to buy the house. And that's what the Jamaican government should do. It should borrow the
Okay.
money. It could borrow
Mm-hmm.
the money to take
Mm-hmm.
the infrastructure off the grid and use the money that we were paying to the electricity company, and that way we save.
We wake up every morning to different stories from politics, business, sports, and entertainment. These stories, one way or the other, affect our lifestyle and dealings with family, friends, and business associates. Your take on Diaspora Network Television gives you an opportunity to have your take on these pertinent issues via phone in and messages to our social media platforms, DNT Ghana on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If it's an important trending story, we will definitely talk about it. Your take with me, Yalsichi, on DNT.
Would you buy anything without first knowing exactly what the product was and how it could benefit you? Definitely not. Neither should you vote for your next member of parliament without knowing who they are and how they plan to solve your problems. Watch The Next MP only on Diaspora Network Television and find out the men and women who want to represent you in parliament. The Next MP only on DNT.
Let me switch a bit on you. After 58 years, how much control do you think the British government still has over Jamaica?
The control. Well, we still have their laws, and that's a big issue, as you mentioned, with the child with the dreadlocks. Then we have antiquated laws that are changing gradually about legalization of marijuana. So we have the control, I think, saying probably in Ghana, which was an ex-British colony. So we still have their old slave laws that are still over us.
What about the people? Do you think the people have... there's a famous line by Bob Marley in one of his songs. He said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind." Do you think the Jamaican people have emancipated themselves from mental slavery, in your opinion?
No, because it doesn't allow it. You do that if you're educated, and the people, and all people are not educated, and they're misled as well. That's the other problem. So no, they won't be. If they were emancipated, they'd have risen up a long time ago and told the government, yeah, they've risen up a long time ago if they were emancipated.
And you think education will help with that process? It'll help hasten that process, right?
Without a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay.
Okay. If you look at on the UN website, we have something called the Rhodes Scholarship, and that is a scholarship that is given by Shrama Rhodes, who was a founder. I won't call him the founder. The devil who was in Rhodesia, that Rhodesia was named after. Now, if you look on the UE website, they describe him as like just not the murderer, the racist murderer he was. That's the kind of description that we have. And so, yeah, so even that, where we have the statue of Columbus still around, and these things should have been pulled down a year ago. They shouldn't be still standing there.
Okay, so is there hope, or do you think that Jamaica will never correct itself based on this trajectory?
Correct itself if we have proper governance, and we don't have the governance in this country. We're just unfortunate. We just don't.
When do you think the proper governance will come? Why don't you run for office?
Pardon?
Why don't you run for office?
Well, actually, at the end of last year, a new political party was formed, and I joined them as the education and energy spokesperson. And I joined really just to get a platform to put forward my proposals about solar and renewables. And Nothing happened. The media, when we wrote to the media about all of our proposals, they just ignored us. Now, last month, another new party has just come on the block, and it's called the Jamaica Party, and it's run by a bunch of religious guys, bishops and priests, all of them. And immediately, their policies, they're all over the news. Their policies are,
Really?
and they're not very good. All their policies are all over the news, talking about how their taxation, they change taxation, and they would get rid of casinos, go clubs, they get rid of those as well. And immediately, Betty. But the party that I was in.
Why do you think that the media embraced that party's ideologies, but they ignored yours?
Because of corruption and capitalism. I'm trying to, my proposals are based on the people owning a renewable energy industry. So let me go through what would happen. So at the moment, the government spends around 150 million US every year on electricity. So that's for schools, street lights, hospitals, all of that. 150 million.
Okay.
As I said, the payback period is 4 years. So it would cost us in the region of $600 million to take all of that infrastructure off the grid. So what I proposed was, why don't we borrow, say, $2 billion from the IMF? Sounds like a lot of money, but if you borrow $2 billion from the IMF, the interest rate is 5%, and you pay it back over time. So that means that if you borrow that, your payments per year would be 105 million a year, okay? At the moment, we're paying 150 a year. Now, which is better? Paying 105 million and putting in all this infrastructure. Remember the amount of jobs that you're going to create. You're going to have waste to energy. You're going to have recycling. You're going to have proper e-waste recycling. You're going to have the schools now will be able to buy electric school buses, and with COVID, that these children should not be being transported just on regular transportation. We're also going to have schools will be able to put in extra panels, sell electricity to the grid, and make. The other thing that would happen is that the schools would stop paying fees as well, because at the moment we have what I would call educational apartheid, in that the rich are well educated and the poor are not educated. This would change immediately, because all investment would go into education, and then the tier system would disappear overnight. And that $2 billion is
to which country? Go ahead and finish that thought, please.
Yeah, you could employ more teachers, pay them better as well. And the other thing about doing all of that is going to be social intervention as well. Our crime it costs us 500 million US every year. Crime does. Now, if you put in this proposal, you can say that every year you'd expect it to come down, because you're going to have more people working. You're going to have people having hope, but they know that they don't have to go out when they stray from. There will be a chance of them getting. The other thing is that uniforms will make sure that any factories that are going to be built with power and wind power, so that people come to these offices or workspaces and rent a space where they make things instead of all this Chinese rubbish that we have.
Okay.
You can make off the stuff that comes from China, even if you have to bring it here and.
Let me switch on you. Clearly, listening to you, looks like Jamaica has quite a ways to go in terms of developing, even after 58 years. I want to switch your next attention to the Africa relations with the motherland. First off, which country in Africa do the Jamaicans feel closest to?
No, as I said, I don't think Jamaicans feel particularly. The rest of might feel a bit more close to Africa, but no, I don't think that feeling of. Again, it's because of our history. We weren't taught proper history at school. When I was at school, I learned about. I knew about the Incas, the Mayas. I knew a bit about Egypt. I knew a lot about Peru, and I knew a bit about Greece and the Romans. It isn't until you decide to go to fourth form when you're going to do your end of school exams, you have a choice of history, and that history then will be Caribbean history. But all the way up through to say 40, knew very little about slavery and Africa.
So they don't teach African history in the schools in Jamaica?
Very little of it. So when I was at school, I'm speaking from when I was at school, and it was very little of it was taught when you were, and that's the stage when you'll be doing, say, 10, 12 subjects before you decide subjects you want to go forward with. So I know that when I was at school, I decided I was a scientist. I did maths, physics, chemistry, biology, and my option, I had to do history or geography. So I picked geography.
Okay. Now, there's a group that just started, Ghanaian Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, right here in Accra. What do you think the opportunities exist between entrepreneurs in Ghana or the rest of the continent and Jamaica?
Entrepreneurship.
Yes. What business opportunities exist between Africans and Jamaica?
I'll go back again to talking about renewable energy. We could have a wonderful relationship with Africa if we were solar panels. We want to have solar panels that come from China. And all the minerals actually do come from Africa. They're all in Africa, and it wasn't a Eden company just made some solar buses. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I think Congo also, one of those Central African countries, they're manufacturing electric buses. Is that the one you're referring to?
I would say that if we were going to go through and have such a $2 billion scheme to put in renewables into the country, then that would open up the opportunities. The first thing to say that we do not want any solar panels that come from slave labor.
What kind of What kind of relationship do you foresee as ideal between Africans on the motherland and Africans in the Caribbean?
Well, it'd be wonderful for us to be travel to our countries, wouldn't it? But that will never happen when we're all so poor, and we're all poor as the colonizers, aren't we? So that will never happen. It won't happen until.
Why would it happen?
It won't happen until we have till Black Lives Matter in our countries, and Black Lives don't matter in Jamaica. The poor aren't getting educated.
Oh, I'm finding it hard to hear you. You said what did you say about Black Lives Matter?
I said Black lives do not matter in Jamaica. Say only the rich or those with money educated, and the poor, they remain poor, remain in pop, because they're not educated, not educated, just to pick respond. And that's what we have in Jamaica.
So the black struggle, is it a separate thing in Africa, separate thing in the Caribbean, separate thing in Europe, and separate thing in Americas?
It shouldn't be separate thing though, should it? It is that, but it shouldn't be that way. And that's why I said before that we need a leader like the great Dr. Arikana, a wonderful voice. And I think if the people in the Caribbean heard it, awaken. Like us in the Caribbean, we don't have it here. They're talking about having reparations, and we have nobody to represent us.
Okay. Inside Jamaica, right? Right now, the whole world is going through, you have Black Lives Matter, you have white people killing black people in America. In Jamaica, what is the relationship between blacks in Jamaica and whites in Jamaica?
Well, so I live in Montego Bay, and there's not that many white folk here. And I'd say that the relationships, there's no problem with it. But, we have a lot of tourists come here, and they're treated extremely well. It's quite funny that when they're walking, if they're going to cross, you'll see all the cars come, and they'll all stop and allow them to cross the road. Whereas me and you were trying to cross the road, we'd get run over. But they won't stop. Whenever they see them, we'll slow down. So they're very well looked after. But we have more Chinese here. So, yeah, I won't be talking about them anymore. I'll be talking about the Chinese.
You have more Chinese in Montego Bay than white people?
Oh, yeah. So the white folk that are here now, many of them will work for some of the hotels. And I know that in Kingston, that there will be some of the corporate there. But in May, they'll be working in and the call centers. We have a lot of calls now in Jamaica. And the Chinese, they're here as visitors. So they are actually, it's on nearly all the shops now. So if you buy the kind of grocery, invariably you'll be buying it from a Chinese person.
In Jamaica?
Yeah, in Jamaica it's quite frightening. Nearly,
so the grocery, you're saying the grocery stores are mostly dominated by the Chinese in Jamaica?
In the towns. If you go to areas, they're not in the rural areas because there's no money in the rural areas. You go
Okay.
So you say Montego Bay, Santa Cruz, Grill, wherever you go, all those shops are owned by over 90. I would say over. I think in Montego Bay, how many stores are owned by black people, and I can't think of any.
Do we have a situation in Jamaica also where in other black communities in America, if a black person opens a shop within the black community and a Jamaican opens a shop right next to him, within a few months the black shop owner closes and the Jamaican takes over, the Chinese shop owner takes over. We love to patronize the Chinese, other people more than our own. Do you still have that same phenomenon in Jamaica?
Yeah, 100% have that. And
really?
Yeah, and they'll speak to them and they'll say that we can't run things. They'll say that black people can't run things. They'll say it took the business immediately. That's what they'll tell you.
So who represents more of a threat to Jamaican sovereignty, Europeans or Chinese?
Threat to the sovereignty? I'd say the Chinese then, definitely Chinese. They're the ones who invest in the most money here. They built the best roads that are built, they built them. And as I mentioned about our renewable energy that we should have, the government invariably wants that to be put into Chinese hands. That's why the proposal that I forward, which is all to do with state ownership, the government want to end them because they want private investors to come in and do it. So, and for whatever reason, black cannot own, it looks like we cannot own anything. So in Jamaica, there's nothing that we don't own anything in Jamaica. And the one thing that we should own is renewable energy, because the sun does shine for free, the wind blow for free, and I don't see what that Jamaica using their own money to put in the infrastructure. Why does it need investors to put in the money to and make money from the sun shining and the wind blowing, which make the money?
So who controls more of the economy in Jamaica, Europeans or Chinese?
Controls it? What do you mean by controls it, though?
The economy. Who owns more of who dictate the economy? When you talk about economic control of the economy in terms of who owns what, would you give the tilt to Europeans or to Chinese?
Right, so you've got the hotels are big, the bed industry here, and a fair few of them are apparently they own them, and we have a Jamaican. I think it's the Spanish have a dealership here of hotels.
The what? The Spanish?
No, the Spanish, yeah.
The Spanish. So the Spanish are also. Okay, so so the hotels are big, obviously, because of tourism. But who are more into the hotels? Is it Europeans or Chinese? You're saying is it Europeans? Okay.
Yeah.
And the Chinese are more into what sectors of the economy?
Bill, we say they're the shopkeepers, and then all the engineering projects they'll be doing. So when it comes to road building, that's where they'll be doing that. Because any kind of major infrastructure that they built.
Okay, so they're into infrastructure and everything. And so back to my question of, if you became president, whom would you trust the most? I mean, listening to you, I know that you would much rather Jamaicans control much of what goes on, but it's when it comes to foreign influence between Americans, Europeans, and the Chinese, who would you rather have besides Jamaicans playing more of a role in the economic development of Jamaica?
I'd have the Chinese. I mean, at the end of the day, they didn't enslave us. So I'd have.
Okay.
We have slavery today.
So you much rather the Chinese, but just because they didn't enslave you. But you look at what the Chinese are doing to black people in China. Does that concern you?
It does concern me, but I say again, these liberties are taken with us because, again, because in our own countries, we're not united. If we were united and to change our own countries ourselves, then China, would we? We wouldn't have to be in the UK. At the end of the day, we have our own country. If you live in England, you're suffering from racism, you should just be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to stay here anymore because I know I can go back to my homeland. I can go back to Ghana. I can go to Nigeria and be welcome there. I can go to Jamaica. I can go to Barbados. But we can't. We're stuck in these countries, aren't we?
Okay.
As the national regulator of the communications industry in Ghana, the National Communications Authority seeks to ensure an environment that is safe and fair for consumers and service providers. NCA grants licenses and authorizations for operation of communication systems and services, develops guidelines to streamline communication activities, establish and monitor quality of service indicators for operators and service providers. NCA is in 8 regions: Accra, Tamale, Takoradi, Kumasi, Kumasi, Ho, Koforidua, Sunyani, and Bolgatanga. Do you have unresolved complaints with your service providers? Contact us on 0800110662, 0307011419 between the hours of 8 o'clock a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. from Monday to Friday, or visit our website at www.nca.org.gh and follow the procedure for filing a complaint or submitting enquiry. National Communications Authority, communications for development.
We wake up every morning to different stories from politics, business, sports, and entertainment. These stories, one way or the other, affect our lifestyle and dealings with family, friends, and business associates. Your take on Diaspora Network Television gives you an opportunity to have your take on these pertinent issues via phone in and messages to our social media platforms, DNT Ghana on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If it's an important trending story, we will definitely talk about it. Your take with me, Yalsichi, on DNT.
Would you buy anything without first knowing exactly what the product was and how it could benefit you? Definitely not. Neither should you vote for your next member of parliament without knowing who they are and how they plan to solve your problems. Watch The Next MP only on Diaspora Network Television and find out the men and women who want to represent you in parliament. The Next MP only on DNT.
Pan-Africanism. What does Pan-Africanism mean to you personally?
And the unity of all black.
Regardless of where they live.
Pardon?
Regardless of where they live, right? Okay,
where they live.
But that's something that we've been talking about for a long time. Kwame Nkrumah talked about it. Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King. All these people believed in Pan-Africanism. They laid their lives down for it. Why do you think we still haven't been able to put it together as Black people? We've talked about Pan-Africanism, but we haven't really executed it. What is stopping us?
We have no unity. There's not one of our countries that is governed properly by the looks of things. Not one of them. Say in Jamaica, we have an elite and they want to keep everything for themselves. The country is run for 1%. And wherever you go, look at Ghana. Ghana, I read, makes, in 2017, I think it was, made 8.35 billion from gold. Okay? Now, do you...
you said Ghana made how many?
8.35 billion was what they earned from gold. 8.35 billion earned from gold, right? How many gold mines do you think they have in the UK, or diamond mines? How much do you think they have there?
Not much that I know of.
Exactly. So, guess how much money that they earned? Well, you won't. Yeah, the amount of they earned from precious metals and gems. They earn 42.4 billion in a year, the UK. But doesn't have any gold, doesn't have any diamonds. How on earth is that possible?
Okay, you know, I'm gonna make you
When we immediately rectify that kind of problem, then we can have the discussion about having our Pan-Africanism.
I'm going to make you more sad, right? Because Ghana actually made less than $2 billion from gold in 2017.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think it's about a little over 2 billion. 2.4 billion is what Ghana made. And you're saying UK made how much?
42.4 billion from gems and precious metals.
Okay. So why do you think people such as you who see these disparities, and the same thing you talked about in gold, you can also see in cocoa. Ghana, Ivory Coast are the 2 and 1 leading producers of cocoa, but what we earn from the product is a paltry compared to what others make. But why is it that our leaders can't look at these numbers and alarm bell should go on in their head? Why do you think that's not happening?
Dr. Ericana told you, the Europeans control everything, and they control these governments. The governments don't care because they're like they're just puppets, aren't they? The government here is a puppet. They don't.
So what that tells me, maybe what that tells me is that we black people were not good enough. What do you say to that?
We're good enough. Of course, we're good enough, but somehow I don't understand how we've just been kept down so much, and now it seems as if our heart has been destroyed, that we haven't got the fight anymore. And it looks that way because and then you have the propaganda as well with the mainstream media. When I see Africa, I'll see the level of corruption, and my impression was that when I watch it, I see that a 5-year-old girl having to leave her home and go to Accra to work, and I'll be cussing and thinking that is because of the corrupt Ghanaian politicians. That is not the case. It's the case that mineral wealth has been stolen by the Europeans. Now, France immediately, everything could change if France, Dr. Arikana said, stop taking 500 billion from the ex-colonies. That is why these countries are impoverished, and that is why people are having to get on dinghies and trying to cross the Mediterranean. That you are in a country and you decide that I'm going to leave that and travel how many hundreds of miles on a boat. You risk your entire just to get away from your country. You're getting away from the country because of the colonizers.
Dr. Lennon, at the end of the day, who shoulders the blame? If you own something in your house right now, where you are in Montego Bay, you have gold in your house. I'm in Accra. I want that gold. I come in here and somehow I trick you and get the gold from you for $1 Jamaican dollar. And then I turn around and go and sell it for 50 Jamaican dollar. I might be able to do it once and get away with it, but to repeatedly do it, and you know what I'm doing, and you allow me to do it, who shoulders the blame, me or you?
Yeah, but if you, but it depends how you do it, doesn't it? It depends how it's done. If you come in there, what am I going to do about it?
But they're not doing it with guns. They're not doing it with guns.
Well, look at what France. If any time a government decides to stand up against the French, what happens? There's a coup, there's instability immediately.
They don't use white French to conduct a coup. They use people within themselves. So how come we cannot talk among each other and get to a conclusion? If the French come to you and bring you arms, shoot them with it. Don't come and overthrow the government with it. Why can't we have that conversation as black people?
Because a lot of this information is knew about the French theft until I heard Dr. Arikana. So I only knew about it the last year. And when I've told other people, they can't believe it, and I think they're gobsmacked. Now, I don't think any white suffering, I know in England, that they prefer to have a little less, that people else, that Ghana would get more for their gold than them get all that money. They'd prefer that. I'm pretty sure about that. Most people are good. They want equity, they want equality.
Okay. So back to the same scenario that I painted. I come to your house, you and your wife live there. Take the gold. I'm not coming with a gun. I'm coming to your wife and telling her bad things about you. She believes me, and somehow I take the gold without firing a gun. Whose fault is it?
That would be my wife's fault if she did that. Well, I don't have a wife, but if I had a wife, that would be her fault, wouldn't it? I don't think that's a very good analogy, though.
Okay, what is the analogy?
I
Why
mean,
are they taking from us? Why are they taking from us repeatedly? And we know about it, but they still continue to do it. How are they doing it?
well, I think we could ask the UN that. I mean, if you're talking about human rights, they're talking about human rights all the time. And they say that the Africans are leaving and trying to get a better life in other countries. Now, Human Rights Watch could easily turn around and say, these people are leaving because of what the colonizers have done. You've impoverished them, and they give no option but to leave. So Human Rights Watch could make a lot of noise about this and alert the people. Not the 1% because they're the problem, but the 99% do not know about it. They don't know about it because this is not in the news. Now, if this was in the news, people would say, hang on, Oxfam, hang on, UN, what UNICEF, what are you doing? We never knew. What are you doing? What is your job? What are you there for? I can tell you, living in Jamaica, I know for a fact, charity is a business. You don't kill your cash cow. It's a business. Yeah. You don't kill your cash cow. If I had my way and I had my solar panels all over the schools, and then we had proper education, and the poverty started to disappear, what Food for the Poor going to do? What are Oxfam going to do?
Okay.
Then
all right.
They're not going to have a business model anymore. It's based on suffering. Okay. They must have suffering. The West must have suffering, and so we the black people, we have to bear that.
Okay. So let me finally, the global African diaspora. What kind of relationship must exist between the Africans in the diaspora and those on the continent for us to get it? Because it seems like right now we're not talking to each other. We're not in sync with each other. What do you think it would take for us to be in sync together so that we can develop our respective lands?
So I'll go again. I think we need a voice like Dr. Harry Connor out there. I said,
okay.
I think she's unknown. I never knew nothing about her. I never heard of her. And I know in England, nobody's heard of her in England. There's such a few Africans in England might know about her. But if her voice got to the white folk, they would say they want change. The only, the amount of people who are marching in the Black Lives Matter, there's more white folk marching than black people. They want change. And if they heard a voice like Dr. Harry Connor, they would turn around and say, hang on, mate, you're wrong. You cannot be stealing that. I mean, France, what are you doing? How can you take 500 billion? How dare you? It's not your bloody money. It's not your money. I've been to Paris.
But I can tell you this. France picked up the phone and called the African Union and said, we don't like what this woman is doing. And African Union fired her.
Yeah.
What does that say about us? Like one more time.
It says that the people that we have in power or influence are put there by the colonizers. We need to get rid of them. You just need run-of-the-man people like me and you should be the first people who have, well, not the power, but have the voice. We have the wrong people. We don't have anybody speaking for us. So when people are talking about reparations, who is going to represent us? The Jamaican government can't represent us. I mean, it's no different than having a rapist going to court and saying that, oh, I'm going to represent the victim. All the victims that I've raped, I'm going to represent them in court. It's no different.
Okay, if you say we have the wrong people there, guess who voted them there? There are those who will say that every country's leader is a reflection of their people. People point to Trump and say, that's Americans. People point to African leaders and say, that's Africans. How are they wrong?
When you have we have a so-called democracy, so people vote. Well, I can tell you in Jamaica, at the last election, we had 47.7% of the people voted. Is there a mandate to rule when under 50% of the people vote?
Whose fault is that? Did anybody tell anybody don't go and vote? Well, that's voter suppression.
No, they're not voting because it's pointless. I wouldn't vote at the next election. What's the point? Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. You know, they're still going to steal the money. The poor are going to get poorer. What's the point of it? It's pointless. When I lived in England and you're there and you have a two-party system there, that's not democracy. It's not democracy.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah. This is, you know, every time I get into this conversation, it can go on and on, but let me finally ask you this. We've talked about Jamaica. After all, tomorrow is Jamaica. Actually, this is going to air tomorrow. So it would be Jamaica's independence, which is August 6th. All right. Where do you see Jamaica? When you look on the horizon, do you see hope or do you see despair?
I'm definitely in despair now because of COVID-19.
But COVID-19 will come and go. After that, do you see hope or do you see despair?
When will COVID go? You tell me when COVID is going to disappear.
I think just like any other virus that had come, it's been controlled somehow, be it with a vaccine or people developing defenses against. But COVID is not going to be here forever. HIV came, it's no longer as much a threat as when it first came. The Spanish flu, all those have come and gone. So at some point, COVID-19 will also be in a rear view mirror. Do you see hope or do you see a despair in Jamaica's horizon?
Despair. Now,
see despair.
Quite simply, despair. Because our economy is based on things, tourism and remittance. When is tourism over? Even if COVID disappeared tomorrow, it's going to take how long for the tourism industry to build this up?
Right.
So if you put your eggs in that basket. The other basket there is remittances. Now remittances are good for the people who receive it, but if you're not receiving remittances, if you don't have anybody abroad sending you money, you're in big trouble. Because when remittances come over, invariably, adverse effect on the Jamaican dollar, because nobody wants the Jamaican dollar, it's only used here. Right now, the Jamaican dollar's worth is heading towards $150 to $1 US. When I came here in 2013, it was 100. So we've had a depreciation of nearly 8 years, something like 8 years, we're going to have a depreciation of around about 50%. Do you think wages have gone up 50%?
I know, huh? I know. So if you see despair, if you see despair, you are an educated, you're a doctor. What's your doctorate in? What discipline was your doctorate in?
I did
chemistry, okay? Yeah. All right. If you look on the horizon and you see despair for Jamaica, what are you willing to do or personally invest to ensure that there is hope for Jamaica?
Well, I said I'm advocating for state investment in renewables. And I've actually sent a complaint to the Integrity Commission, which is the corruption watchdog in Jamaica, one of them. But I said, Jamaica is so corrupt that I said I joined a political party and put forward these proposals, and the media ignored them. I've sent them to the government's ignored them. I sent them to the UN, and the UNDP ignored them. When I sent them I spoke to somebody in the UNA, and then the UNA, they said that these proposals, if they were rolled out in the tropics, they could reduce poverty, improve education, the green aspects of them as well. And then you've got poverty, and then you've got equality as well. The amount of lab remaining in schools. in education. So these proposals, as I say, are good in this respect that we know how they're going to be financed. Now, when everybody talks about we're going to do, we need new roads, and you're thinking, well, how are you going to pay for it? That's always the issue. How are you going to pay for these investments that you're going to? This is what I'm talking about. We know exactly how it will be paid for, and we know how it will be serviced quite easily. We know how it will be done.
Dr. John Lennon, Dr. John Lennon, you have been gracious with your time. You are a renewable energy advocate from Montego Bay, Jamaica. DNT would like to thank you for your time in talking to us. Before we go finally, how did you hear about DNT?
Because of following Dr. Arikana. And then I think I saw somebody, yes, all the videos, and then I think then I saw your video of interviewing her. And then I contacted you, didn't I?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. We have a bond. Me in Ghana, you in Jamaica, we can make a change. Let's keep thinking in that direction, all right?
Well, hopefully next time we speak, then I'll be able to tell you that I have made some changes over here, because that's why I'm here. Because the people need change over here, Jermaine, but they're desperate for it.
Okay.
And if they knew, if they had the information that I had, then they would definitely, we definitely have change. The people would take to the streets, I'm telling you. But they just don't know what is going on, unfortunately.
Let's keep at it. Don't give up.
Okay.
All right.
All right then. Thank you.
Thank you.